Forget about the boring capsule wardrobes you keep seeing on Pinterest, because this is not how you build a capsule wardrobe that's going to work for you and your lifestyle. It's also not about limiting your items to 10, 33, or any given number just to fit into a mold. The key to building a successful capsule wardrobe is actually making sure it abides by the 5 core capsule wardrobe needs and that it uses at least 2 of the 8 capsule wardrobe tools to make it more interesting and personal to you. And so if you're someone that wants to build a capsule wardrobe, keep watching until the end, because I promise you this is the only capsule wardrobe video that you'll ever need to watch. So last week in my community tab, I actually asked you what's your biggest struggle with capsule wardrobes. And the votes were pretty split, but a lot of you shared that the capsules don't actually fit your lifestyle or express your personal style, and so you're not very interested in building them. Another big thing was that people wanted to build capsules but didn't know how many items they need or what to actually put inside the capsule. And there was also the problem of feeling restricted by space, laundry, or just what you actually put in there. And also the feeling of boredom and like you're lacking creativity. And so for me, that is because most of the capsules I see online don't actually address all 5 of the core capsule wardrobe needs. So without further ado, let's dive into the first one, and that is making sure that your capsule is weather appropriate. I don't know about you, but I hate feeling cold, and so no matter how cute my capsule wardrobe is, I'm just not gonna wear it if I'm cold. And so weather fit is actually the first and most important to me capsule wardrobe need. So all you need to do is making sure that you decide how many months you're going to address with that capsule. For me, that's usually 2 to 3 months. And then going on Wikipedia and just having a look at the climate of your town or city, because you're going to find the temperature range that you're going to need to dress for. And once you know your temperatures, this is a really important thing. You need to make sure that you have the right fabrics that are going to work for you. So if you have a very warm autumn, you can take all of the advice that people give about spring and summer capsules and use things like cottons and linens, silks, and so on. But if you're someone like me that lives in a colder climate, you need to make substitutions to your fabrics. And so that means for any blouses and shirts, avoid things like thin cotton, linen, viscose, and polyester. They're not going to keep you warm. And replace them with thicker, sturdier cotton, flannel, corduroy, and denim. When it comes to silk, avoid anything that is super lightweight or see-through, and instead look for silks that are sturdier, thicker, or even knitted, because you can even layer underneath them. Another very popular thing you're probably going to need in your capsule is knitwear. And so when it comes to that, I would say avoid anything that is acrylic, polyester, or mix of the two. Similarly, I find that viscose or viscose polyester blend ribbed knits are so popular, but at the same time, they peel so easily. And because you end up wearing your items a lot more in a capsule wardrobe and you wash them a lot, this sort of knits tend to look very worn out very quickly. And so instead of those fabrics, try to pick some more natural fibers. And that can be merino, cashmere, or wool if you're able to wear those fabrics, or if you're more sensitive, choosing cotton blends in different thicknesses. When it comes to bottoms, there is a lot more variety of fabrics, but again, I would suggest avoiding anything that is super lightweight and breezy, things like cotton, linen, tencel, silk, and instead picking fabrics like thicker, sturdier cotton, corduroy, denim, or wool. When it comes to viscose, I find that bottoms can actually work pretty well because they don't need that much washing. And so things like knitted skirts, thicker viscose trousers, or satin skirts made out of viscose can actually work pretty well if it doesn't get too cold. And finally, even though I'm not a fan of man-made fabrics when it comes to tops, I think for bottoms they can actually work sometimes. And so whether that is recycled polyester leggings, pleated skirts that are pretty much always made out of polyester, or even wider leg trousers that some people prefer to wool, this fabric can actually work. And similarly, faux leather trousers can be a good replacement if you're someone that doesn't like or doesn't want to wear leather. Just make sure that it doesn't look super artificial. And finally, when it comes to shoes, my only simple rule is no open toes. And that is because, especially if you live in a colder climate like me, your feet are gonna get cold and you're gonna be miserable the whole day. And so instead, you can still choose some more open-looking shoes like mules, flats, loafers, slippers, or even pumps and kitten heels. These are all absolutely fine. Just make sure the toe is closed. And of course, any shoes that are closed like sneakers, ankle boots, and taller boots can absolutely work for your autumn-winter capsule. In terms of shoe materials, I would always recommend leather and suede if it's a drier climate. And some people also like water-resistant fabric shoes such as the Vivaio ones. that can also be a great alternative. Oh, and by the way, if you're enjoying this so far, but you're someone that's a lot more visual, I have made you a PDF, so stay until the end. Now that you fulfilled that need, you're probably left with quite a big pile of clothes. And so the next capsule wardrobe need is something that I see so many people miss, and that is keeping only items that you actually love and want to wear. Because when it comes to a capsule, especially a smaller one, you're going to end up wearing the same items over and over again, sometimes 10 to 15 times. And so if it is an item that makes you feel uncomfortable in any sort of way, you're gonna be miserable and you're not gonna wanna wear that. And so you're gonna be left with an even smaller capsule, which isn't actually useful. And so anything that for whatever reason doesn't fit you or you don't like, leave it out of your capsule. And if you're wondering, but Millie, I have a couple of maybe items. Isn't a capsule wardrobe a good time to try them? Yes, that is an absolutely valid point. And I usually have a couple of maybes that I want to test drive within my capsule. But I only recommend leaving no more than 10 to 15% of your items to be maybes. And so let's say if you have 30 items, that is about 3 to 5 items that you're considering. Anything more, and you're going to feel like you don't actually have enough things to wear. And so now that you've removed everything that is not weather appropriate and you don't actually like, it's time to think about, does this capsule wardrobe actually fit your lifestyle needs? Because I find that the capsules that are recommended are either very much casual for people that maybe like work from home and don't need to go anywhere in a professional setting, or on the contrary, they're very office appropriate, but don't take into account that people may have a very different lifestyle. And so here is a list of a variety of different activities that you might end up doing during your 3 to 4 months that you're going to be using the capsule. And so try and think about which of those activities you do the most of. And so these are going to be the core things for your capsule. And so if you have two kind of activities that are very, very different, for example, maybe you work in a bank and so you have to be very professional and dressed up, and then you have weekend hiking activities with your family, probably those two need to be two separate capsules. However, if you're someone like me that works from home most of the time, maybe goes on a date night here and there or a brunch with a friend, most of your activities can actually fit within one capsule. And so this is going to determine how many items you need. And so once you know what you're going to be dressing for, it's time to talk about something that I don't see people addressing, and that is making sure that the capsule actually suits your boredom level. And yeah, that's right. I call it boredom levels because I think that we all have different tolerance to routine or repeating the same things. So I find that on one end of the spectrum, there are those people that love repeating outfits and they don't mind wearing the same thing 2 days in a row, or maybe taking the same top that they wore yesterday and just styling it in a new way. You might also really want to have a small capsule due to space restrictions, or maybe clutter or a lot of items make you feel overwhelmed. And so you're perfectly fine with a smaller amount of things. And so let's say that you want to be dressing for the next 3 months. So in total, 90 days, right? For the next 3 months, you need 90 different outfits. But you don't mind actually repeating each outfit 3 different times. And so that means you only need 30 different outfits to last you for the entire time. And so if we do some simple maths, the easiest way you can create that is by using 6 tops and 5 bottoms. 6 times 5 is 30. And so theoretically, you can only do that with 11 items. Now, this is not very realistic though, because probably not everything is going to match perfectly. You may not like certain combinations. And so I would say try to give yourself a little bit of extra. So for example, 7 to 10 tops, 5 to 8 bottoms, and then make sure to add a couple of jackets, shoes, and bags. And so in total, you're going to need between 15 and 30 items to suit your needs. And here is an example of a colorful and I would say quite interesting capsule wardrobe that is only made up of 23 different items. 8 tops, 6 bottoms, 2 jackets, 3 pairs of shoes, 2 bags, and 2 accessories. And from here, you can create a lot of different outfits. So for example, I've created 6 different outfits with the pink top. And let's assume that you can only pair 1 pair of shoes and 1 jacket with each outfit combination. So you're still going to have between 30 and 40 outfits. So if you repeat each of them 2 to 3 times, you're absolutely sorted. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you might be someone that has a very low tolerance for boredom. You want to be more creative. You want to express your personal style. Maybe you like a lot more unique, interesting items. Or maybe you kind of find that things don't actually fit together very well. And so for you, 25, 30 items probably not gonna be enough. And so let's say the extreme case, 90 days, we need 90 different outfits. You don't want to repeat an outfit. And so again, we can create that theoretically with 12 tops and 8 bottoms. But because not everything's gonna work together, let's up it a little bit. So we're going to pick between 10 and 20 tops, 7 to 15 bottoms, 2 to 10 jackets, and 3 to 10 pairs of shoes. And you're pretty much guaranteeing that you're going to have a pair of shoes and a jacket for each outfit combination that you like. So here is the same wardrobe, but expanded for people that actually have a low boredom tolerance. And so you can see we've increased the number of tops to 14. We've added a few more bottoms, jackets, and pair of shoes, but we've kept the bags and the accessories the same. Now, of course, you may add a few extra things if you want to make your outfits even more interesting, but you can see this capsule has 37 items and you can create at least 100 outfits that are going to work. And so the general rule is that the more unique items you have or the more creative that your style is, the more items in total you're going to need. And something to say in here is that unlike in the summer where we need to wash our tops pretty much after every wear, I find that in the winter, you can actually get away with not washing your jumpers all that much. You can steam them or let them air. But you still need to make sure that you have enough under layers, whether that is bodysuits, thermals, shirts, tank tops, anything that you wear. So make sure you have enough of that to last you throughout the week. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps with the algorithm. And finally, once you've decided your boredom level and how many items you're actually going to need, it's time to talk about your level of saturation, how much color you're going to include in your capsule. And so I want you to look at this scale and assess where you're at. I don't want you to just think about what's the highest amount of color you can maybe tolerate once or twice. I want you to think about what are your typical outfits like. So are you someone that mostly wears one color neutrals, all gray, all black, maybe black and gray? Do you like to mix your neutrals, so having a lot of different shades? Do you like mostly neutral outfits but with some pop of color, whether that is top, bottom, or accessory? Are you someone that likes to have at least 2 different colors in their outfit? Or are you someone that just enjoys dressing in color pretty much everywhere? Once you know that, this is going to tell you how many neutrals versus colorful items you're going to need in your capsule. So if you find that you're level 1 or 2, you love neutrals, right? And so there's no point for you adding a lot of colorful things in your capsule. So in here, I would say focus on having different shades, so not just having one color, having a lot of different textures and having a variety of shapes. And I'm going to talk about all of that later in this video. But basically, you're pretty much safe having a capsule made of 100% neutrals. And I would say someone that dresses a lot like that is Rosie Huntington-Whiteley. I don't see her almost ever in anything colorful. She still makes very interesting and stylish outfits. The next level is level 3, which I call the pop of color level. And so whether that is a top, bottom, coat, bag, anything that just adds that vibrance or something more interesting, you're going to need to have colorful items. But rather than making it a big portion of your capsule, I would suggest maybe 20-25% color and 75-80% neutrals. And because you have a lot of neutrals still in your capsule, make sure that you have a variety of textures, patterns, and shapes to keep it interesting. Moving along the color spectrum, you might be someone that enjoys colorful outfits. And so for you, I would say having a variety of colorful tops and bottoms, I think is going to make your dressing a lot easier. You might find that you still benefit from having some neutral accessories, whether that is more basics or bags, and something like a colorful coat can actually be a great addition because it's going to guarantee that you have color in your outfit almost every day. And so the distribution here, I would say, is maybe 40% neutrals, 60% color. And finally, if you're someone that really resonates with Blair 80 and her very colorful way of dressing, you might find that you don't actually need that many neutrals. And so 10 to 20% neutrals, 80% color is what I would recommend. Now in here, I would suggest not having every single color in the rainbow in your capsule because that can still make it quite difficult to get dressed. And probably having 5 to 8 different colors, including some shades, can actually make it still cohesive and easier to put outfits together. You can also play with different patterns and maybe still keeping 1 or 2 more neutral looking but colorful accessory, for example, in brown, burgundy, darker green, that can tone down crazier outfit combinations. And so by now, you should have removed all of the clothes that are not suitable for the weather or are things that you don't enjoy wearing. You'll have chosen the lifestyle that you want to make this capsule for and decided how many outfits and items you're going to need based on your boredom levels. And finally, when you have the number of items, then you can decide how many of them are going to be neutrals and how many need to be in color to suit your saturation needs. So now you've set the boundaries and you're left with clothes that you can use. Now is the really important part, and that is how do you actually choose what to go inside the capsule wardrobe. And so there are two different ways that I have done that. Both of those work. So first method is if you have digitized everything in an app like Index, you can take all of the screenshots, upload them to Canva, and then you can create your virtual capsule wardrobe. And I find that it's a lot easier to see that on a desktop because I can play around with the items, copy and paste them very quickly. And for me, that's just better than doing it on the phone. At the same time, if you're not someone who wants to bother with that, you can just put all the items on the floor or on your bed and split them by type. So let's say you know that you're going to need 5 bottoms, and when you split them by type, you realize you only have 5 bottoms. Well, you know that you're probably going to end up using all 5 of those things. But if you only realize that you need 10 jumpers and you have 20 in the jumper category, then you're probably going to need to split those jumpers in an autumn capsule and maybe a winter capsule later on. And so how do you actually pick which of the 20 jumpers to leave and what to put aside? And that is where the 8 tools for building an interesting capsule wardrobe actually come into play. So let's say with the 20 jumpers, we've separated them by color and we realize that we actually have 5 blue jumpers. If you take a look at your jumpers and realize that they look like this, well, to you they might be a bit different, but realistically speaking, they look very, very similar. And so the outfits that you can create with them are going to end up looking very, very similar. And that can create that feeling of restriction or boredom because you're always wearing a blue jumper outfit. And so I wouldn't recommend keeping all 5 of those jumpers in the same capsule. However, if you realize that your 5 blue jumpers actually look more like this, you can actually keep all of them without getting as bored. Because you can see that there is a variety of thickness, texture, fit, neckline, and they're going to create quite different looking outfits even with the same pair of jeans. And so if you're someone that has decided that you want to use blue maybe as one of your colors, then all 5 of those can stay. And this is where I think that the biggest reason capsules don't work for people is because of that feeling of restriction that can settle very quickly. And if you noticed in here, I talked about variety. Or in other words, we can call this visual interest. And that is the core principle that the 8 tools embody. You need to create visual interest in your capsule wardrobe to ensure that you're not feeling restricted, bored, or like you're always wearing the same type of thing. So let's look into the 8 tools in a lot more detail. The first tool, you've probably guessed, is color. And this is really important because once you know your preferred level of saturation, this is going to give you a sample color palette that you're going to use. Now, if you're someone that is into color analysis like I am and you know your seasonal color palette, I would recommend starting from there and picking colors from the ones that are recommended. If you're someone that maybe doesn't know your season or you don't believe in that, that's fine. Maybe pick 5 to 8 colors and use the distribution as follows. So if you're someone that is level 1 in terms of saturation needs, you only need neutrals. So maybe pick 3 to 5 different shades and they're going to help you create quite monochrome looking, very easy to pair outfits. If you're someone with a level 2 saturation need, so you like mixing a lot of different shades, I would say still stick to neutrals, but try to pick between 6 and 8 different colors to make your capsule more interesting and versatile. Level 3 is the most varied because some people would prefer to have just a couple of neutrals and a lot of different single colors, and other people prefer to have a variety of neutral shades and maybe only 2 or 3 different pops of color that they can use. And so still the important thing in here is that you're not going to be pairing a colorful top with a colorful bottom or a colorful top with a colorful coat, right? That's not necessarily your preference. And so it's not as important that the colors here match easily. And so pick colors that you like, that you have items in. Now, when we move to level 4, this is where we're actually going to be combining color. I would suggest having a light, medium, and dark neutral to suit a variety of different color combinations. And then most of your wardrobe is going to be made out of color. So I would suggest having maybe 3 different main colors and then using different shades of them. And so, for example, in here, you can see the main colors are red, orange, and yellow, but we have a variety of different shades of them. And they're going to combine pretty easily. Almost everything is going to go well together. And finally, if you're someone with the level 5 saturation needs, so you need a lot of color in your outfits, I would still suggest having a light and a dark neutral that suits your color type, so it doesn't mean white and black. And still, you probably want to have no more than 8-9 different colors. Some of them are shades, because you're going to be putting outfits together with them. And so if you have every single color under the rainbow, it might be a little bit tricky. And so you can see here for this warm autumn, I've picked shades of yellow, green, orange, and red. And I can guarantee that outfits made out of those shades are gonna look pretty cohesive and pleasant to the eye. And here is the same sort of principle, but for bright winter, you can see how the color palette can vary a lot based on your saturation preferences. So let me give you some examples. So I've decided that I'm going to use a couple of neutrals and a couple of colors with a few shades. And so this capsule wardrobe can suit someone with level 3 or level 4 saturation needs based on how they combine outfits. So you can see that we have 10 colorful items and 40 neutrals. It's kind of like a 50-50, 40-60 distribution. And so let's see how the same capsule can actually work for those two different people. So those first 3 outfits are mostly made out of neutrals, but they have one item that is a pop of color. And so they create still monochrome but interesting looking kind of outfits. Versus if we go to level 4, the person that likes to combine 2 different colors with some neutrals, you can see that the overall feel of the outfits is actually different. It feels bolder, it feels a lot more colorful, right? And so the same items, just based on how you put them together, can create quite different looking outfits. And so even though this is not exact science, I wanted to show you that the same capsule can suit a variety of different saturation needs based on how you put the outfits together. The next tool in adding visual interest is understanding your solids versus pattern preference. So basically, how much patterns or prints do you enjoy having in your outfits? So again, I have a very handy scale. And so level 1 is the person that only likes solid items, whether that is solid neutrals or solid colors. They can be very bright, like you see in here, but they're all one color, no pattern. Next is the level 2, the person that doesn't really like patterns, but maybe doesn't mind a small logo, number, or maybe a small pattern scarf, but nothing really big on the outfit that is made with patterns or prints. Level 3, we're starting to get there. So these are the people that maybe enjoy some quiet patterns. So things like stripes, plaid, maybe some florals, polka dots, but anything that from very far almost looks like a solid, but it's still a pattern. And they normally prefer to pair those patterns with some neutrals. Level 4, we're upping the ante quite a lot. And so these are the people that like items with quite loud, bright patterns and prints. But you generally, if you have something that's very printed, you probably still wear it with something that's more solid color, more neutral. You try to sort of tone it down and let that piece be the accent. And finally, we have level 5, and those are the people that either love to mix patterns and prints and create those very creative looking outfits, or maybe you like to mix your pattern with a very bright color, again, creating a very bold statement outfit. And so once you found your level of pattern preference, now it's time to assess the items that you've put all together. Does this actually meet your pattern needs? Do you maybe need to replace certain items, maybe add a few more patterns or prints, or maybe remove some? So let's look at this capsule, which can suit someone from levels 1 to 3. So level 1 would probably want to remove any patterned items. The striped jumper and the scarves would need to be replaced with solid colors. Level 2 is probably quite fine because even the prints are not bold at all. They're almost not noticeable. And level 3 might actually want to add maybe 1 or 2 more items that have stripes, maybe a plaid coat, or anything that still has some pattern, just to make sure that you have slightly more versatility. However, if you're someone that's level 4 or 5, so you like louder patterns or mixing patterns, you're not going to be happy with that capsule. It's not going to fulfill your pattern needs. And so what you need to do is replace items with something with a bit more visual interest. And so you can see in here, I've made some substitutions. I tried to keep the item type, so we have exactly the same number of items. But if you look into this, you can see that straight away, there is a lot more going on. The items are bolder and brighter. We've added also one bottom that is brighter. And so we've kept 23 items, but those are a lot more interesting. It's visually a lot more. And so if we compare the outfits that someone can create from those two different capsules, level 2, you can see that the outfits feel very solid. There's not much visual interest in terms of print. They're still lovely outfits, but they're not printed. They're not patterned. Versus in level 4 and 5, you can see that there is a lot more visually going on. And so if you're someone that likes that higher level of visual interest, make sure that you have enough patterns. The third tool to add visual interest is to have a variety of thicknesses within your items. And that is especially helpful if you live in a climate where the weather can vary quite a lot. And so you might need some warmer weather and colder weather outfits. And so, for example, in here, we can have the same silk blouse with a pair of faux leather trousers and cotton cardigan, paired with a pair of loafers for the warmer weather, and then replacing the silk blouse with a thicker cotton jumper and a woolen coat, adding a pair of ankle boots, is going to create exactly the same looking outfit in terms of a silhouette and colors and proportions. However, it's going to be a much better fit for your weather. And so if you know what you like and what works for you, but you have a varying climate throughout your autumn, then make sure that you have the same items but in different level of thickness. Similarly, you might be someone that likes to create visual interest through layering. And so if that's the case, having a variety of thicknesses can also be very helpful. And so things like blouses and very thin knits can be layered under cardigans, under dresses and blazers and create visually more interesting outfits. Similarly, having chunkier knits can be great for layering over blouses and shirts. Layering is not going to work for you if you have exactly the same thickness because it's going to look and feel quite awkward. And finally, I want to mention that you might not want to use layering as a tool, totally fine. And in that case, it's absolutely fine to have pretty much the same thickness of tops all around your capsule. The next tool is one that I personally use quite a lot and I think is super exciting in the autumn-winter season, and that is texture. So I realized that there are two different ways that you can add texture in the winter. So the first one is shiny versus matte. So if we look into this all black outfit, you can see that if we use matte items on top and bottom, it can look quite cohesive, but maybe not very interesting. But the moment we add one shiny item and keep everything matte, we're creating contrast. And so texture can create contrast. Similarly, the different way that we can add texture is through actually having flat versus more three-dimensional textured items. So any sort of item that is very smooth to the touch, and that can include knitwear like cashmere or merino, can actually look very casual and a little bit more pared back. Versus adding texture such as cable knit, sequins, embroidery, applique, anything like this can actually create more contrast and more visual interest because it's more three-dimensional. And so if we were to make a graph, and you have to forgive me, I'm an engineer by education, so I love my graphs, you can split your items into 4 different categories. So the first group are probably where most of your items are going to fall. And those are the matte and flat items. So think anything that is made out of cotton, any sort of knits, jeans, anything like that's probably going to fall into that space. Group 2 are still matte items, but they maybe have some texture. So cable knits, anything made out of lace, mesh, anything like that's going to go into that group because it's not shiny, but it still has texture. The next one, group 3, is when we have flat items, but they're shiny. So this can be things like silks and faux leather. They're going to be still very smooth to the touch, but they have a higher visual interest because they have shine. And finally, we have the items that are both shiny and textured. So things like sequins, anything with zips that has a little bit more of a dimension. And so why this is helpful is because by pairing items from different groups together, you're going to create outfits for different occasions, from very, very casual to more brunch and date nights to more special occasions. And that is why we generally want to have items in all 4 groups, but not in the same amount. And so the amount is going to depend on your lifestyle. So let's look into the capsule wardrobe that we have created in here. So you can see, as predicted, most of the knitwear, boots, bags are very matte and flat, and so they fall into group 1. We have the textured shirt. It has sort of applique floral details. And we also have the bag that, let's say, has some texture because it's pebbled leather and it also has the logos. And so it's definitely matte. It's not shiny, but it's much more of a three-dimensional item. We also have a couple of shiny but flat items. So the faux leather pants, the silk blouse, the patent leather boots, and also the silk scarves. And we only have one item in group 4, so that is the shiny faux leather jacket with the zips. So this sort of capsule is going to suit someone that maybe has a lot more casual lifestyle, maybe goes to the office, and generally a lot of their outfits are going to feel quite pared back because most of the tops combined with most of the bottoms don't have that much visual interest in terms of texture. Now, if you're someone that likes to create visual interest through texture, we need to replace some of the items. And so, for example, instead of the flat top, we're going to keep it matte, but add 3-dimension with this texture. Instead of the flat and matte skirt, we're going to keep it flat, but add shine through using satin. In terms of the cardigan, we can definitely add a lot more texture through the sleeves and the buttons. And finally, the bag, we can actually move from group 1 to group 4. And so we're making it both shiny and textured through the croc leather. And so that bag, even paired with the more neutral outfits, is going to add an element of texture. And so just by replacing some of your items with something that has a little bit more of a visual interest, you're going to create more interesting and unique outfits. And so that's where I say you need to know your lifestyle. And I can't actually tell you which group you should have the most items in. I think for most of us that maybe work from home, have more of a casual lifestyle, groups 1 and 2 are going to be where we want to put all of our items in, and maybe have a couple of more elevated, more presentable, let's say silk shirts or full leather pants, boots, anything like that, and maybe 1 or 2 sparkly shiny items if we go to a restaurant, fancy dinner, anything like that. If you're someone that goes out a lot more, you're probably going to need a lot more items in group 3 and 4, with maybe a couple of basics in group 1 and 2, just to keep the outfits wearable. And so again, you need to analyze your lifestyle needs and go from there. So moving to tool number 5, and that is contrast in lengths. This is one where I think that people can have a lot of resistance, and I totally understand. Because we're very often told that you're short, so you need to wear cropped items, or you're really tall, so you need to wear longer items. And you may not actually like this. You may also have been conditioned that if you have, for example, longer torso, you shouldn't wear lower rise jeans or anything like that. Or if you're very short, you can't really wear maxi skirts because your legs are going to appear even shorter. And again, I'm not here to tell you what to wear, what not to wear. I think the most important thing is how you feel. Because you might be someone that is able to wear all lengths and you still don't like some of them. And you might not like the lengths that are typically recommended for you. So I think the most important one is to know your personal preferences. And so while I think that having a variety of lengths can add a lot of visual interest, you don't need to have all different items in all variety of lengths if you don't feel comfortable in some of them. So let me show you what I mean. So let's say that we want to buy a leather jacket and you really like wearing longer, wider leg trousers. Now, if you pair that with a longer line leather blazer or leather jacket, you're going to create a lot more of an intimidating feel, versus if you pair that with a crop leather jacket, you're going to create much more of a contrasting, edgy feel. Similarly, if we want to pair our leather jacket with a shorter skirt, having a longer jacket with a shorter skirt is going to create that contrast, versus having a short jacket with the short skirt is going to give us a little bit more of a youthful, playful sort of look, a little bit more relaxed as well. And so you need to know what kind of effect are you looking to create? Do you want to be intimidating, contrasting, or do you want to feel more youthful? And based on that, you can pick what you want to wear. Similarly, let's say you have a gray jumper and you want to wear that with a skirt. Now, if you have a shorter black skirt and a longer black skirt, you can create 2 very different looking outfits. With the longer skirt, it looks a lot more professional, more elevated. And with the shorter skirt, it looks more playful and is maybe more suitable for going out, brunch, any activities like that. And the same thing applies to shoes as well. If you compare the 2 skirt outfits, you can see that the shorter boots versus the longer boots, again, create a bit of a different silhouette and a bit of a different effect. And so having different lengths of your items can actually help you to create a variety of different outfits. So for me personally, I like having lower boots and taller boots because they can pair quite differently, even with the exact same clothes. And that actually nicely leads me to tool number 6, which is using a variety of silhouettes. So something that I recently learned is that both items and outfits as a whole have silhouettes. So when we look into items, in general, we have 3 different types of items. And so for tops, for example, you can see that a fitted top is going to be very, very close to the body. We'll be able to make out your body shape. The straight item is still going to be relatively close to the body, but maybe there is a little bit more of a distance, and we can still sort of make your shape, it's just not fitted. And then finally, we have the loose, boxy, oversized items, and they're very far from your body. And so we can't actually make what your body shape underneath is. The same rule actually applies to bottoms. And what I find quite interesting is that even items such as tapered pants can have fitted straight and loose silhouettes. You can see that they're actually quite different, and the outfits that you create with them will look different. And even items that are perceived as overall wide, such as wide leg trousers, can still be fitted straight or loose. And so when you put the items together, you can actually create 4 different combinations of outfits. So you can have an outfit that is as a whole quite fitted. You can have an outfit that they call fit and flare. So it's basically either fitted on top or bottom, and then the other part is loose. You can have a straight silhouette where pretty much all of the items are straight. Maybe one of them is white and the other is straight. And then we have loose outfits where pretty much everything is looser, boxier, more oversized. And similar thing actually applies to dresses, because dresses basically take our entire body. And so I think they have exactly the same silhouettes. And so we have fitted dresses which fit your entire body. We have the fit and flare. We have the straight dress, and then we have the loose, more oversized dresses as well. And so you have to ask yourself, which of those silhouettes do you actually like to wear? And I am yet to meet someone that feels equally comfortable in super fitted or super loose silhouettes. For most people, you're going to like 1, 2, maybe 3 different kinds of silhouettes, but you're going to have your preference. And it is really important to then assess, do you have enough items in your capsule that create those kind of silhouettes? So for example, if you're someone that likes a lot looser, boxier outfits, but you look into your items and half of them are fitted, you're not going to get a lot of wear out of those items. And so it's important to replace them with items that fit your silhouette preference a little bit more. Tool number 7 is one of my favorite tools because even if you're someone that doesn't necessarily like patterns, you can still use this to create visual interest. And I call this tool the details tool. So you might look into your items and realize that you either have a lot of neutrals or you have a lot of colored items, but they're still solid colors. And if that's the case, pairing them together is still not going to create a lot of visual interest. So you need to pay extra attention to the level of details that your items have. So let's compare this plain pink jumper with this other pink jumper. They're both solid colors, but you can see that the second one has the zip and the collar, which are details that add more visual interest. And so if you have a couple of more interesting items, then the outfits you create with them are still going to be solid colors, but they're going to look visually more interesting. So how do you add details? Now, I think in the winter is amazing because you have so many different necklines that you can utilize. So in here, you can see we have the more closed ones, so crew necks, zips, mock necks, high necks, and roll necks. But we also have V-neck vests, tops, and deeper V cardigans. We also have the scoop neck and the boat neck, and they're more open and create visual interest. And so for me, for example, I realized that most of my jumpers were actually crew necks, which wasn't very helpful because they create a lot of casual silhouettes, which is fine. But if I wanted to do anything a little bit more interesting, more formal, date nights, anything like that, I didn't actually have items that suited that need. And so having 2 to 3 necklines at least that you like and work for you is going to be very helpful to create that visual interest. Besides necklines, there are other ways that you can add detail. So that can be through the sleeves, cutouts, zips, collars, pockets, buttons, and shoulder pads in terms of your tops. And when it comes to bottoms, again, they don't have to be plain or boring. Things like buttons, belts, drawstrings, pleats, lines, stitches, pockets can all add visual interest even to solid color trousers. And so even if you're someone that maybe doesn't necessarily want to create visual interest through textures or patterns, you can still use the details tool to make your outfits more interesting and more unique. And finally, we have accessories. If you're someone that likes to play with shapes and colors, textures, patterns, maybe your accessories don't need to be interesting at all. You can literally have more plain items in neutral colors to ground your outfits. However, if you're someone that maybe doesn't use any of the other tools that much, you can create a lot of visual interest through your accessories. And so rather than picking neutral, more plain accessories, this is the time to add visual interest. So one of the easiest things to use is bags. So you can see in here, all 4 of those bags have at least 2 of the previous tools I've mentioned in there. So whether that is looser silhouettes, brighter colors, specific texture, shape, anything like that to create that visual interest, these bags are definitely more interesting than a plain black bag. Similarly, if you're someone that likes belts, you might still want a black belt, just don't choose the most plain black one. Pick something that has an interesting buckle, texture, or detail. And if you're someone that wants to play with color, again, you can add color with texture, you can have color plus specific details, you can have a thinner belt, pattern belt, so many variations in here to add visual interest. Another tool that is specifically useful for autumn and winter is actually scarves because they can vary a lot in terms of thickness, length, patterns, and create a lot of visual interest, especially if your outerwear is plain. And similarly, you can also use hats to create visual interest and keep yourself warm. So in here, I've actually decided to create the 6 most common types of hats that I see in the winter. It's obviously not an exhaustive list, but you can see that each of those hats actually has at least 2 of the different tools that we have mentioned above. And of course, when it comes to accessories, the world is your oyster. You can also play with things like jewelry, glasses and sunglasses, raincoats, boots, gloves, socks, ties, anything like that. Now, I've not necessarily included that much in here, but make sure that, especially if your capsule is a bit more plain and you want more interesting outfits, then your accessories need to be at a higher level of visual interest. And so you can assess yourself on the 8 different tools. Do you actually like to use this tool? Do you maybe sometimes use it, or are you not a fan? You definitely don't need to use all 8 tools. You might choose maybe 2 or 3 to start playing up with. And I can guarantee you that even if you only use 1 or 2, you're going to create much more interesting capsules and outfits that are more suitable to you, your lifestyle, and your preferences. And so if you want a lot more of a step-by-step guide on what to do, what not to do, and how to build this ultimate capsule, I've put both the slides together with some additional notes in a PDF, and I've made this available for less than the price of a coffee, so you can download this below. So now that you know how you build the ultimate capsule that works for you, stay tuned for next week's video where I'm going to show you visually how you can use those 8 tools to create more interesting outfits with your capsule wardrobe. Until then, see you later.